So, see, your career seems like your professional career, has it even been 10 years since you started your professional career?
2017, so you're talking 6 years.
6 years, and the stories that you've told me feels like a lifetime of stories, right? So you finished your graduation and you started interning at Republic directly.
I wasn't interning, so this is a story in itself, if I can tell you that. So I've always envisioned myself playing for the country, a sporting career. Played for the state at multiple levels, multiple junior levels rather, and it was around 2013ish, 14 that I was told that I will no longer be able to pursue a certain sport, primarily because of a broken backbone. I had met with an accident, ended up getting 8 screws drilled into my back.
Oh my God.
Post which I had to pivot. A lot of people did come up with suggestions on, you speak well, why don't you give journalism a try, etc. But it took a lot of time for me to understand what I want to do. Once your plan A is out of the window, I think it takes time for you to formulate another. I'm somebody who genuinely believes that having a plan B doesn't let you give your plan A 100%. So therefore, I never had one until life struck me. So one fine day, I was surfing through one of the social media platforms. This was in 2017. Around 3 to 4 years after being on bed for a year, I'd recovered fairly well over the next 3 years, etc. And I was looking at launching myself into a career. And the pop-up said, if you want to work with Mr. Arnab Goswami, who's coming up with his own network or own channel at that point in time, shoot us an email.
So this was before he started Republic officially.
Yes. This was before he had announced that he was coming up with a channel, but it was not on air.
Right.
So all the background work was happening. The team was being formulated. A lot of core team members were being recruited. It was during this time that I came across this pop-up on a social media platform, and I said, okay, I haven't tested my email drafting skills for quite some time. Why don't just shoot him an email? I didn't even have a CV. And the reason why I think during the course of this podcast, this story is going to be very, very important is because it's what I want to drive home personally through this session. If somebody like me who had never interned in a media house, had no clue of what all departments exist in a media house and what their respective job roles entail and what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, could shoot an email to somebody like Arnab Goswami. And I'll tell you what happened after that. So I just shot them an email titled Letter of Intent. And I just said, man, I've seen your work during your stint at Times Now. I really like what you do. And I'd love to join you. And I have nothing to show for it. I really don't have an internship record.
Was that mentioned in your email?
Yes. It was mentioned that I have nothing to show for it. I obviously didn't have a CV. I mean, if I had something to show, I'd have a CV, for God's sake. So I did not even expect a response, to be very honest. I was like, this is going to go into one of their trash cans. A week later or something, I get a call from the HR of Republic saying, you've got your interview lined up on this day at this time, so be ready. It's going to be a Skype call. I said, fair enough. I mean, being a fresher who's yet to give his final year examinations in 3 months, I thought, okay, an HR or maximum an editor is going to take my interview and judge as to whether or not I fit in. Half an hour before the interview, I get a call, and they say, Arnab's just come in. And the term for Arnab at office is boss. So boss has just come in, and we'll be plugging him in the next 15 minutes. And I'm like, wait. You're saying Arnab Goswami is going to take my interview?
A person who doesn't have any experience, who's getting into the field for the first time ever, is being interviewed by one of the top, journalists.
That was a shocker. I mean, I just had, 10 minutes to gather myself up. And the first question was a bouncer. He looked at me, he looked at my mail, didn't have a CV to look at. And he said, so Akash, what post am I looking at for you? I looked him straight in the eye through the camera and I said, I don't know. And he went, what? And he looked at the editor who lined up the interview and he's like, what is this? I mean, this guy doesn't even know what he's applying for. Though I had a justification for it, I said, so it'll be foolish of me to say I want to work in A department or B department without really knowing what they do. And as you can see, I've never worked in a media house before. I'm a tad bit clueless about what's coming my way. But I think I have the skill set to do what it takes to be good here. And after that, it went into normal generic interview questions. Luckily, because I had prepared for CLAT after my 12th, I kept in touch with current affairs to an extent. And like I said, because of that one question and the way it began, I had no hopes. I had zero hopes, to be honest. I went back home and I told my mother that I possibly need to look for another job. This one's not working out. A week after that, I get a call from the same HR saying, "Are you okay relocating to Mumbai?" I'm like, "Wait, does that mean I've gotten the job?" And she says, "Yes." And I eventually went to Mumbai, met Mr. Goswami. And it's very important, Rohit, that I highlight this here. I may not agree with 100% of the things that an X person or a Y person does. In this question, it's Mr. Goswami. But he's a person who's picked me up from college in 2017 and taught me everything that others would have taught you in maybe 5 years of your career within a span of 5 months.
I get that. He's giving you that opportunity to be where you are right now, right? 100%. He was a stepping stone for you. And at that point, of course, you didn't know what sort of a person he was. He is known to be now, right?
Exactly. And though I might agree, I might disagree, he has his own way of doing things. We parted ways after a brief period because I had other plans in life and I didn't agree with.
How long did you work with Republic?
I worked with Republic exactly for 5.5 months. And those 5.5 months were the most extensive training sketch that I've ever been in. Because for 5.5 months, working day in and day out without a single off for launching a national channel was something that taught me more than any other experience of mine could have.
So was the channel launched as you guys came in, or was the channel launched a little later?
So I came in 3 months in, the channel's launched. So I was there for the first 2 months of the channel being launched, after the channel was launched.
Okay.
We did roll out a couple of really big stories. And that is exactly where, this is a very interesting story once again.
No, before you go to that, I want you to, because I know about this, I want you to tell the audience as well. Did you asked Mr. Goswami why he hired you?
I did. I went to Mumbai, I met him, and I was like, "Sir, why?" Because after that interview, I really had no expectation, no hope that you would hire me. And he was very blunt. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "How many people in India do you think have the gall to sit right in front of me and say, 'I don't know,' in an interview?" And that was overwhelming to an extent, right? Because he was being real, he was being true, he was not trying to put on 100 things that eventually got me to. And coming from down south, coming from a university like Osmania University, Rohit, a lot of kids even today believe that the national media is beyond their reach. There are a lot of barriers. You need a godfather in the industry. Is something that I hear during the course of my guest lectures every now and then. If my journey proves anything, it proves the fact that if you've got it in you, and if there's one man up there who can see that talent, see that spark, and get you in.
It's just about taking that plunge. If you wouldn't have taken that plunge to send out that email, never happened.
It's about that. And how I became a reporter is another story that people should know.
Yeah,
because it portrays a certain trait in this man that maybe the world has ignored, right, to a great extent. They were rolling out the ISIS sting from Hyderabad. It was a very big investigation. It proved to an extent that ISIS operatives still exist in Hyderabad, etc. And there was an edit meeting at around 2:30 a.m. And I remember
Is that the usual thing, like meetings at 2:30 a.m. and stuff?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a 24/7 news
Really?
cycle. So
Okay.
he gets done. I mean, usually editors or anchors get done with their prime times at around 9:30, 10. So it does go deep into the night, but I think Mr. Goswami had his own style of working in a lot of ways.
Got it. And so was he like always there, or was he like a maniac in terms of the work that he did, or was he like chiller, like he would come in late in the evening?
Oh, that depended.
Okay.
That depended on a lot of things. See, he was a hard taskmaster for sure. And today when I look back, there were times when I was with him that I might have gotten frustrated as a person, as a professional, because I was just entering a profession, didn't really know how it works. But today when I look back, I think I'm thankful because that opened my doors up and that prepared me for a lot of things that I was going to face in the near future. And it made everything easier for me. He's a very hard taskmaster. He's chill when he is. He's a very humorous, good person to be around. He's somebody who's very down to earth at certain points in time. But yes, he loves his work. And he is a perfectionist when it comes to what he wants on air.
Right.
And yes, I mean, if you're not going to deliver, then your team's going to have a tough time. I mean, that's for sure.
Last question around him is that he has changed from what he was in Times Now to what he is in Republic today. right? And there are certain reasons for those changes. But when you were working with him, it was his initial days of Republic, right? It's the transition over years that's happened. What was like compared to what he was like at that point to now? Do you see the difference, or is it just for the camera? What is it about him?
Well, I see the difference. There have been phases that I've been observing in his journalistic style. When he started out with the Lalu sting, when he started out with the Shabuddin sting and all of that.
This is him in Times Now.
This is him in Republic when he started
okay.
off. Again, this is just my personal opinion, what I've observed, because I've only been there for 5 months, right? They went all guns blazing, right? And then there was this time in Indian journalism that you can observe where things went mellow, where selectively stories were picked up, where the ruling dispensation could be attacked upon, etc. There was that trend. Post that, today if you look at it, I would say Republic's journalism style as an organization, in my opinion, has become way more objective than it was when it started out. But it is a huge shift from what he was in Times Now, for sure. It is a different environment, right? Republic is his channel. At Times Now, he was an editor. So things do change. And as a person, has he changed? When I spoke to people who worked with him in Times Now, it was their opinion that he did because of multiple reasons again. Some in bad ways, some in good ways. But yes, there was a huge transition from what he was. I'll give you an example. This is an excerpt which people may not cozy up to. So, and that'll lead into how I became a reporter. Right? So at 2:30 a.m. meeting, he said, I need 2 elements from Hyderabad and I'm rolling out a really, really big sting operation tomorrow. And how much I wish I could send somebody who could get me those elements. These were essentially reactions from the authorities and one ex-political leader, because he's been involved with this particular story for a long time. I don't know what happened to me at 3 a.m. I just stood up and I said, and this is what me, 3 months into active journalism. I've always known that I wanted to be on the field. I'm not a guy who can be curtailed to 4 walls or a cabin. The field is addictive for me. I stood up and I said, sir, I think I can get you these 2 elements. Why don't you make me a reporter? Why don't you just push me onto the field? He looked at everybody around, the top editors, his core team. I don't know what struck him. Within a matter of 45 seconds to 1 minute, this man looked at me and said, your flight's at 3:30, why don't you go pack up?
Wow.
He made me a reporter within 45 seconds to 1 minute. I've seen him...
Without experience.
Nothing. I've seen him make anchors in 30 minutes. Said, go roll a bulletin in a test bulletin in the studio right now. You're anchoring from 8 a.m.
Crazy.
So while people might disagree with a lot of things he does editorially, which is everybody's entitled to their own opinion, I also think that these are also sides to a human being that people should recognize.
And I mean, he is where he is because of the amount of work and effort he's put in.
And we should only be fair when we look at a person. Another incident I was telling you about how the workplace was. So, Mr. Goswami has no concept of departments, or at least that was the case when I was there. So there's some people who are naturally always smiling, right? So this I very evidently remember. So he'd walked in and something wrong was going on air. A graphic had a spelling mistake or something of that sort, or one of the graphics were not fired. He comes in, there's this guy who's standing at the printer, waiting for a printout, and he looks at another production source. And Mr. Goswami is looking at him, he's like, why the hell are you smiling in my office when there's no graphic on the screen? How dare you smile in my office? So, I mean, that's the extent to which he could be a hard taskmaster. That's the extent to which it can get frustrating at times. But then, when having worked with a lot of top executives, a lot of CEOs / CXOs / chief minister, post that, I've come to understand the fact that it needs for a person to be so brutal in order to get to where they are more often than not. And who am I to judge what?
And that's common among a lot of like these top people, right? Okay, so that was your journey with Republic. Did you do any sting operations? So what was your journalism side of Republic?
Journalism side, I was very instrumental in the ISIS coverage after the sting was rolled out. After that, we were working. If you remember, there was this one MP from the state of Andhra Pradesh who had slapped an Indigo employee at an airport.
Oh, yes.
And then there was a sting that was done by Ms. Prema Sridevi, who was the SIT chief at that point in time. She went to his home place and stung him and revealed a lot of, I would say, if I may use that word, nasty things about him.
About the MP.
Yes. I was very instrumental in accumulating all the information that we needed to do to execute that string in the planning. I was also instrumental in ensuring that, this MP had gone into hiding for a lot of time, primarily because he knew that he was going to face media backlash, and that's been the go-to strategy for most politicians after making a bizarre statement. So we had to track him down, figure out where he is, and then execute this sting operation the way it was executed. So I was doing all the background work and supporting Prema Sridevi there. Apart from that, as a journalist, I've covered the Abu Salem verdict, the 1993 bomb blast verdict from Mumbai.
When was that?
That was in 2017 itself.
Okay.
So I had covered that for Republic in Mumbai. I still remember that verdict being passed on to me slip by the reporter inside the courtroom. When
so you were sitting inside the courtroom.
Yes.
And how does it work?
So whenever I'll give you an environment, right? I mean, it's nothing less than a fish market when there's a big case going on in the courtroom. The judge is sitting there. Everybody's waiting for him to pass the orders. Sometimes it happens in another manner. There are 50 to 100 journalists clogged in one particular courtroom. The lawyers on either sides. And then when suddenly he comes in and he declared the verdict and everybody was convicted, barring that one exception, I would say it was one of the biggest achievements at that point in time to be able to cover the verdict of the 1993 bomb blast, which includes the likes of Mustafa Dosta, which includes the likes of Abu Salem, and
Sanjay Dutt was also involved.
I think he faced his own share of things. He was also involved. That was pretty much my journey as a reporter with Republic.
If you found this clip informative, you can watch the full podcast on our main Barely Opinionated YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more such content.